Most people only realize these 7 truths when it's already too late. Let that sink in for a second. Imagine lying in a hospital bed, knowing the clock is running out. What would flood your mind first? The cars you bought, the promotions you won? Or the moments you missed the words you never said, the risks you never took? Here's something that might shock you. A Harvard study that tracked people for 75 years found that our biggest regrets in life aren't about money, status, or fame. They're about the connections we didn't nurture, the dreams we left on the shelf, and the chances we were too scared to take. I've spent years studying stories from hospice care psychology research and life philosophy, and they all point to the same conclusion. There are 7 lessons most people only understand at the very end. And when they finally get it, there's no time left to live them. But you're hearing this now. You have the time. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through each one, blending wisdom from psychology, real-life experiences, and deep, time-tested truths so you can live with meaning. Now, not someday. So stay with me, because what I'm about to share isn't just advice. It's a mirror. And when you look into it, you might just see the life you were meant to live before it's too late. You know what's funny? We live in a culture that constantly tells us to get more money, more stuff, more status. And yet when people look back on their lives, especially in their final days, none of that makes the highlight reel. Think about it. Have you ever heard someone on their deathbed say, "I wish I had spent more time at the office," or "I regret not buying that bigger TV"? No. What you hear are things like, "I wish I had spent more time with my kids. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I had told my parents I loved them more." I once read the story of a man named Richard, a highly successful businessman in New York. He had the penthouse, the sports cars, the art collection, you name it. But in his 70s, Richard admitted something heartbreaking. He had no one to share it with. His marriage had ended years ago because he was too busy building his empire. His children were distant, and most of his friends had drifted away. He told a journalist, "I thought I was buying freedom, but I was really buying isolation." And this is something we don't talk about enough in America, the illusion of security through possessions. We're sold the idea that stuff equals happiness. But research tells a different story. The Harvard study of adult development, the longest study on happiness ever conducted, found that meaningful relationships, not wealth, not fame, are the single most important factor in living a long, fulfilling life. The people with the strongest social bonds lived longer, reported better health, and were happier overall. Why? Because human connection is in our DNA. Thousands of years ago, we survived, not because we had the biggest cave or the most animal skins, but because we had a tribe, people who had our backs. Fast forward to today, and that hasn't changed. When you strip away the noise of modern life, what we're really looking for is connection, love, and belonging. But here's the trap: in the rush to make it, we often sacrifice exactly what matters most. We say, "I'll spend more time with them after this project is done," or "once I hit this financial goal, I'll slow down." But the truth, that later, often never comes. So let me ask you, who are the 3 most important people in your life right now? And if you had to measure the time and energy you've given them in the past month, would it match how important they are to you? If the answer is no, maybe it's time to make a shift. And no, I'm not saying quit your job or sell your house and live in a cabin unless that's your dream. I'm talking about small, intentional changes. Calling a friend just to hear their voice. Scheduling a coffee date with your sibling. Putting your phone away during dinner with your partner. Those moments will mean more to you in 20 years than any new car ever could. And here's the best part. Investing in relationships doesn't just make you happier, it makes you healthier. Studies show that people with strong social connections have lower rates of anxiety, depression, and even heart disease. Your body literally responds to connection the way it responds to medicine. So when you think about life lessons, here's one of the most powerful: connection over possessions. When you're old and gray, it won't be the square footage of your house that brings you comfort. It'll be the people sitting in your living room. I'll leave you with this thought. In the end, our bank accounts don't hold our wealth. Our memories do. And the richest memories are always made with someone else in the frame. You've probably heard the phrase, health is wealth, before. But let's be honest, how many of us really live by it? We tell ourselves, we'll start eating better next month. We'll go to the gym when life calms down. We'll deal with stress when the weekend comes. But here's the truth. For most people, that later never comes. And then one day your body sends you a bill for all the years you've been neglecting it, and the cost is higher than you can afford. The CDC has found that over 70% of chronic diseases in the U.S. could be prevented with simple lifestyle changes, better nutrition, regular movement, enough sleep, and managing stress. 70%. That's not just a statistic. That's millions of heart attacks, strokes, and cancers that never had to happen. Think about that for a moment. We live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but so many of us spend the first half of our lives trading our health for money, and the second half spending all that money trying to get our health back. I once heard the story of a man named Tom, a successful lawyer in his early 60s. For decades, he worked 70-hour weeks fueled by coffee, late-night takeout, and the adrenaline of winning cases. Retirement was his finish line. But a year before he planned to stop working, he had a massive heart attack. The doctors told him the damage had been building for years. Tom said something that stuck with me: I saved for retirement, but I never saved my health to enjoy it. And here's the thing, when we talk about health, we're not just talking about the absence of disease. We're talking about wellness in every sense: physical, mental, and emotional. Because what good is a healthy body if your mind is drowning in stress, anxiety, or loneliness? So let me ask you, if your body is the only home you truly live in for your entire life, how are you taking care of it? Are you feeding it well? Moving it daily, letting it rest, and giving it time to heal? Or are you treating it like a rental you'll give back someday? And no, taking care of your health doesn't mean you have to run marathons or live off kale smoothies. It's about building health habits that fit your life. Taking a 20-minute walk after dinner. Drinking more water instead of that third soda. Turning off your phone an hour before bed to actually sleep. Practicing deep breathing for 5 minutes to reset your mind. These may sound small, but small choices compound. Just like skipping the gym once can become skipping it for months, choosing one healthy action a day can snowball into a life of longevity and vitality. And here's the part most people forget. Investing in your health doesn't just give you more years, it gives you better years. There's a huge difference between living to 85 and spending your last 20 years in and out of hospitals, versus living to 85 and still being able to travel, play with your grandkids, and enjoy the life you've built. Wealth can buy comfort, but health buys freedom. The freedom to move, to explore, to say yes to opportunities without wondering if your body can handle it. So if there's one takeaway from this lesson, it's this: don't wait for a diagnosis to start caring about your health. Don't make the mistake of thinking you have endless time to get around to it. The best day to start was yesterday. The next best day is today. Because the truth is, your body will either be your greatest ally in living fully, or your biggest limitation. And that choice, more than we like to admit, is in your hands right now. If I handed you $86,400 and told you to spend it all today, you couldn't save a single cent. How carefully would you use it? Would you waste it on things you don't care about, or would you invest it in what truly matters? Here's the thing. Every single day, life gives you exactly that 86,400 seconds. The only difference, you can never get them back. Once they're gone forever. We're taught from a young age how to earn money, save it, invest it, and even how to make more when we lose some. But when it comes to time, there's no refund policy. And yet most of us spend it like it's limitless. Picture an hourglass in front of you right now. Every grain of sand falling is a moment in your life you'll never see again. The question is, what are you trading those grains for? Scrolling endlessly through your phone, saying yes to things you don't actually care about? Or are you spending them on experiences, people, and goals that make your life richer? I remember talking to a retired teacher named Susan. She told me I always thought I had time to write my book. Until I realized 20 years had passed, and the first chapter was still blank. That hit me hard. Because it's not that she didn't have time, it's that she didn't make it. And that's the trap so many of us fall into, thinking we'll get to it later. We push dreams, relationships, even our health into the future, believing that someday we'll finally have time. But the truth, that someday is just a polite way of saying never, unless we choose differently now. Here's what I've learned. Money can add comfort to your life, but time is the only currency that can add meaning. And when you realize its value, you stop spending it on things and people that drain you. So how do you start treating time like the precious asset it is? First, know where it's going. Track your days for a week. You'll be shocked at how much of it disappears on autopilot. Second, spend it intentionally. If you wouldn't pay someone to do an activity for you, maybe you shouldn't be doing it yourself. Third, protect it fiercely. Just like you wouldn't let someone reach into your wallet and take cash, don't let people or distractions steal hours from your day. And here's the magic. When you become intentional with your time, you naturally start living in the present. You stop rushing through life as if the goal is just to reach the end. You savor the small moments, a walk in the park, a deep conversation, even just watching the sunset without checking your phone every 2 minutes. The reality is, one day your hourglass will run out. You won't know when, and you won't get to flip it over. The only choice you have is how to spend the grains you've got left. So ask yourself, if today was your last full day, with 86,400 seconds, how would you use them? And more importantly, why aren't you living that way, Artie? Because the truth is, time is your real currency, and the most valuable investment you'll ever make is how you choose to spend it today. If you knew you had only 5 years left to live, would you keep doing what you're doing right now? Or would you finally go after that dream you've been putting off for years? The truth is, one of the most common regrets people share at the end of their lives is this: I wish I had been brave enough to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. We live in a world that teaches us to play it safe. Get a secure job. Stick to the path everyone else walks. Don't take risks, because what if you fail? But here's the question we rarely ask. What if you succeed? What if chasing your passion is the very thing that makes your life worth living? I once met a woman named Laura. For 30 years, she worked in corporate finance. She was good at it, made a great salary, had the corner office, but deep down, she felt empty. At 50, she made a decision everyone around her thought was crazy. She quit her job to open a small bakery. Today, she's not only thriving financially, but she wakes up every morning excited to work. She told me I may have fewer zeros in my bank account, but my life is finally full. And that's the thing about following your dreams. It's not always about making more money. It's about finding your life purpose. It's about doing something that makes you lose track of time because you're so in love with the process. I get it, chasing your passion can feel risky. There's the fear of failing, of what people will say, of stepping away from stability. But here's the reality. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every person you admire, from entrepreneurs to artists, has a trail of failures behind them. The difference is, they didn't let that stop them. And pursuing your passion doesn't mean you have to burn everything down and start over tomorrow. It can start small, taking a night class, starting a side project, volunteering in a field you're curious about. The point is to begin, because passion grows when you feed it. So ask yourself, what's the thing you've always wanted to do, but kept telling yourself someday? Write it down. Say it out loud. And then ask, what's one step I can take toward it this week? When you're old and looking back, you won't regret the things you tried and failed. You'll regret the things you never tried at all. The truth is, life's too short to live only for the weekend or to wake up dreading Monday. And the older you get, the more you realize the time to follow your dreams isn't when everything's perfect. It's right now, in all its messy, uncertain glory. So if there's one lesson to take away from this, it's this: don't wait for permission to live the life you were meant to live. Give it to yourself. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. It doesn't work. All it does is eat you alive from the inside out. We think holding on to anger somehow protects us, that if we don't forgive, we're keeping the other person accountable. But in reality, the only person paying the price is us. That bitterness, that knot in your chest, it's like carrying a backpack full of rocks everywhere you go. And until you take it off, you'll never feel light again. Psychologists call this forgiveness therapy. And it's not just some feel-good idea. Research shows that people who learn to forgive experience lower stress, reduced anxiety, better heart health, and even stronger immune systems. Forgiveness literally heals your body as well as your mind. I remember talking to a man named David who carried anger toward his brother for over 15 years after a family business dispute. They stopped speaking entirely. David told me that every holiday, even surrounded by people he loved, part of him was distracted replaying old arguments, wishing things had gone differently. Finally, after a health scare, he reached out. That first phone call wasn't easy. But a year later, David said, "It feels like I got my life back." And here's the thing, forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't mean you have to let someone back into your life or forget what they did. It means you're choosing to free yourself from the emotional chains that are holding you back. Ask yourself, who is living rent-free in your head right now? Whose actions or words are you still replaying in your mind years later? And what would your life feel like if you finally put that weight down? Forgiveness is not a gift to the other person, it's a gift to yourself. It's saying, I refuse to let my past control my present or my future. And here's the truth. Every day you hold on to a grudge is a day you lose joy, energy, and peace. The more you cling to resentment, the less space you have for love, creativity, and connection. So maybe this is the week you take the first step. Write a letter you never send, have the hard conversation, or even just decide in your own heart to let it go. Because life's too short to spend it carrying someone else's mistakes on your shoulders. In the end, forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about taking yourself off the hook so you can finally be free. If you think about it, most of the best stories you'll ever tell start with a risk. The trip you almost didn't take. The job you weren't sure you could handle. The person you almost didn't talk to. And yet for so many people, the biggest regret at the end of life isn't the risks they took, it's the ones they didn't. We grow up being taught to play it safe. Choose the secure path. Stay inside your comfort zone. But here's the hard truth. Comfort zones are beautiful, and nothing grows there. I once heard the story of a man named Peter. In his 30s, he had a dream of traveling the world. He kept saying he'd do it one day, maybe after he retired. But life got busy. Work, bills, responsibilities, you know how it goes. By the time he finally had the time and money, his health had started to decline. He told a friend, "I wish I had gone when I still had the energy. Now I'm just looking at pictures of places I never saw." That's the cost of too much safety, the missed sunsets, the untouched opportunities, the version of yourself you never got to meet. And here's the thing, taking risks doesn't always mean quitting your job or moving across the world tomorrow. Sometimes it's smaller, speaking up in a meeting, starting a new hobby, reaching out to someone you admire, saying yes to something that scares you a little. Why is risk so important? Because it's the only way to truly step out of your comfort zone. And that's where growth happens. Every big change in your life started with one moment where you decided to try, even if you didn't know the outcome. Yes, risks can fail. But failure is never the end, it's just feedback. And often the worst-case scenario isn't nearly as bad as we imagine. But the best-case scenario, it could change your entire life. So here's a question for you. If you weren't afraid, what's one thing you'd do this year, and what's stopping you from starting now? Because in the end, life isn't meant to be lived as a series of safe bets. It's meant to be felt, experienced, and sometimes, yes, risked. The last thing you want is to look back and realize you lived more in your head than in the real world. Remember, this security is comfortable, but it's adventure that makes life worth remembering. And the stories you'll be proud to tell one day will always be the ones where you took the leap. There's a big difference between living and simply being alive. Too many of us move through our days on autopilot, waking up, rushing to work, scrolling through our phones, and going to bed, only to do it all over again. Weeks blur into months, and before we know it, years have passed, and we barely remember the details. But here's the truth, life isn't lived in years. It's lived in moments. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss them. A Harvard study on happiness found something fascinating. The people who reported the highest levels of life satisfaction weren't necessarily the richest or the most accomplished. They were the ones who practiced mindfulness, the ability to be fully present, to really notice where they were and who they were with. Think about it. When was the last time you truly tasted your coffee in the morning, instead of gulping it down while checking emails? Or actually listened to a loved one without half your attention on your phone? Those little acts of presence are what give life texture and meaning. Mindfulness doesn't have to mean sitting cross-legged in silence for an hour, though meditation is powerful. It can be as simple as pausing to feel the sun on your face, noticing the sound of laughter in another room, or taking a deep breath when you feel stressed. I once met a man named James, who after surviving a serious illness, said something I'll never forget. When you think you might lose your life, you stop rushing through it. He started walking slower, eating slower, and spending more time just being. And he swore that was when he actually began to live. The challenge is, in our fast-paced, distraction-heavy world, slowing down can feel like falling behind. But in reality, being present doesn't slow life down. It lets you experience it more fully. So here's a simple practice you can try once a day. Stop whatever you're doing, close your eyes for 10 seconds, and take a deep breath. Ask yourself, where am I right now? Who am I with? What can I notice that I would normally overlook? You'll be amazed at how this small habit can change the way you experience your days. Because here's the bottom line, you don't get more time by rushing through life. You get more life by being present in the time you have. Don't just survive your days. Live them. So there you have it, 7 lessons that aren't just ideas. They're a roadmap to living a life without regret. These are the truths people often discover too late when there's no time left to change course. But the difference is, you're hearing them now. You have the chance to act before someday becomes too late. I want you to pause for a second and really imagine this. You're at the very end of your life. You're looking back on decades of memories. How incredible would it feel to be at peace, knowing you didn't waste your time, that you loved deeply, took chances, cared for your health, followed your passions, forgave freely, and truly lived each moment? It's not just a fantasy, it's possible. But only if you start now. So here's my challenge for you. Out of these 7 lessons, which one hits you the hardest? Is it the reminder to put relationships above possessions? To finally take care of your health, to spend your time like it's the most precious currency? Or maybe it's the push you needed to step out of your comfort zone and take a risk you've been avoiding for years. Drop your answer in the comments, because your insight might be the exact push someone else needs to change their life. And if this message resonated with you, don't just move on to the next video and forget about it. Hit that subscribe button so you can keep getting these life-changing insights, not once a year, not someday, but every week, while there's still time to put them into action. Remember, these are the most important lessons people learn too late in life. But you don't have to. You can start living them today, and when your final day comes, you'll know you truly lived.